Chapter 27. Questions and Answers with Paul and Steve. Question from Shirley to Paul. Life seems intolerable without drink. Alcohol is a social lubricant. How can I socialize without it? Can I ask you when you last enjoyed a social evening drinking, Shirley? Come to think of it, not for a long time. I've embarrassed myself so many times in blackouts that people stopped inviting me to social gatherings. Precisely. A common scenario. There's a whole new world awaiting you out there, Shirley. You'll find ways of socializing that are novel and exciting. I joined meditation groups, attended self-development workshops, trained in different types of therapy, and in the process met a wealth of new friends. True friends. In fact, I didn't know the true meaning of socializing until I quit drink. Do you think it's possible to drink normally after misusing alcohol? To my knowledge, after a person has crossed the abreactive threshold, they never return to moderate drinking. Every subsequent attempt to imbibe alcohol results in an abnormal reaction. These abreactions manifest on a mental, emotional, and physical level, or a combination of any of the three. One common foible of abreaction is a compelling desire to drink more. I see. Thank you. Something else has just come to mind. If the alcohol habit is caused by a person wanting to escape unresolved issues, when the issues are resolved, can they resume normal drinking? Again, Shirley, I've never known this to happen. It seems that once the body and the mind have been purged of the effects of alcohol, then any subsequent drinking ends up in abreaction. I drank on a number of occasions after clearing my issues. Each time, I had an adverse reaction. I believe there are two reasons for this. First, my tolerance for alcohol had diminished as a result of abstaining for a good length of time, so I couldn't take it physically. I felt ill. Secondly, I still associated alcohol with lack of control and destruction. When I drank, these associations came flooding back to haunt me, causing mental instability. It appears that once the abreative threshold has been compromised, there is no going back to social drinking, whether we have unresolved issues or not. A question and answer between John and Steve and Paul. I drink to drown out my past. My parents fought like cat and dog, and my father drank away all the money. I was ridiculed at school and isolated because of the shabby clothes I wore. Steve. It's often helpful to seek professional assistance in resolving such issues, John. You abuse alcohol to suppress memories of your past. But suppression is not a cure. It's simply avoidance. The best way to escape your problems is to solve them. I know through personal experience. My childhood was extremely difficult, too. I was abandoned at birth and sexually abused by my foster father. For years, I blamed these experiences for my abusive alcohol consumption. Then I woke up. Blame, I realized, was just an argument against growth. I was entitled to a wonderful life, and the only thing depriving me of it was myself. With the aid of Paul and his psychodynamic counseling skills, I resolved my childhood issues. I would recommend it to anyone. It's such a liberating experience, and now I'm truly free. Paul. Yes, John. By suppressing unresolved experiences from our past, we give them power. Continuous suppression leads to repression, the process by which unresolved issues are banished to our unconscious mind. These experiences are not extinguished. They're highly active and find expression in our lives in various detrimental ways. Neurosis, phobias, inhibitions, addictions, mood swings, the list goes on and on. As Steve says, the only way to escape our problems is to solve them. May I suggest you book an appointment with one of our therapists? They are specifically trained to assist with such issues. Yes, thank you. Coming from you two guys, I know it's real. You've both been through it yourselves. You know how it is. If you can turn your life around after all that you've been through, then so can I. From Robbie. I've amassed considerable debt through drinking. Lost my house, my car, and my family in the process. What have I got to live for? I may as well drink myself to death. Steve. That's a choice that's open to you, Rob. I've personally met many people who have taken that route out. I lost my wife and family too. When I stopped drinking. Yes, they left after I quit drinking because I wasn't the same man I was whilst drinking. I was a stranger to them. Over time, though, they realized that they respected and loved the new man who'd emerged. Transformation doesn't guarantee getting your family's respect back, but it certainly helps. Carol, my ex, and I get on extremely well today. I yearned for her return for years, Rob, but eventually, we both realized we had grown apart. Today, we have a great relationship, and I have a new love in my life. Never thought it possible, but there you go. 61 years of age and courting again. There are some words of wisdom I'd like you to consider, Rob. Attach to nothing and be open to everything. This means don't buy into the illusion that happiness is contingent on having specific people or things in your life. The great mystery that is life has a wonderful way of surprising us when we least expect it. As for finances, look at Paul. As part of his transformation process, he decided to play double your money. He doubled his annual salary by applying his attributes to something he was passionate about and set up a training school. He was the happiest he'd ever been. A question from Karen to Steve and Paul. I drank to drown out my mother's death. She was my best friend. Steve. So did I, Karen. They nearly had to dig 2 graves. Have you ever talked about your feelings surrounding the death? No. People say things like, do you think your mother wants you to be this way? Pull yourself together and get on with it. But this attitude just makes things worse. Paul. Hardly surprising. Most people don't know how to handle issues surrounding death, Karen. Here, we have to look at process and content. The content is the story surrounding your mother's death and what you have to do to fix it. The process is the underlying feelings that give rise to your upset. It is these feelings that need to be processed, Karen. Advice and solutions are of no use. You need to express the emotions that are pent up within you. As with John earlier, may I recommend one of our therapists to help facilitate the process? Yes. Thanks, Paul. I'll make an appointment. George asks a question. What about ongoing support, Paul? Isn't that important? Contact with other people with similar problems? Extremely, George. This is why I'm appealing to people to set up alcoholic to Alchemist meetings. The more experienced members can become mentors for the new members and guide them through the processes outlined in the book. Great idea. Can I start one in my area, even though I'm only 3 months sober? Most definitely. I will help as much as possible, George. It will give you a sense of purpose and greatly enhance the probability of you being successful. I'll get to it as soon as I return home. In addition, George, our website, www.alc2alc.com, has a wealth of online support for people, videos, audio files, meditations, information, and there's even a forum where you can take part in discussions with other people on the journey. You could spend hours a day on there, digesting wisdom that will positively reprogram your mind. Excellent. I'll give that a go too. Questions and answers with family members. A question from Anne to Paul. Living with a drunk is horrendous. My kids and I experienced economic hardship, disruption of our domestic routine, and verbal, emotional, and physical abuse. Most of our time and energy is spent trying to cover up for my husband. We ring his boss and say he's sick when he's really hungover. We tell our neighbors that he suffers from stress. We tidy the house when he has smashed it up and blackout. Trying to keep up appearances is killing us, but what else can we do? We've got to avoid social disgrace. I've threatened to leave him, blackmailed him. I've tried everything, but I can't get through. Paul. First thing, Anne, is to stop the rescue mission. By making excuses for your husband and tidying up after his outbursts, you are colluding with them. You are making it easy for him to continue drinking. When the rescue missions stop, he is forced to face the destruction and devastation he's inflicting on the family. This may lead to the motivation to do something about his problem. You mean just leave smashed furniture lying on the floor until he sobers up? Precisely. On a few occasions, I threw my bedroom furniture down the stairs. The first couple of times, my parents tied it up before I'd sobered up. The last time, however, they left it there to confront me when I emerged from my drunken stupor. Broken drawers and clothes scattered all along the landing. I was baffled and asked them how it happened. They looked at me in a way that needed no words. The thing is, when they tied it up, I wasn't even aware of what I'd done. But that day, I was devastated. It didn't stop me drinking right away, but it gave me food for thought. Next time your husband smashes the plates up, leave everything as it is. Don't approach him when he's drunk. Wait until the effects of alcohol wear off and appeal to his better nature. When you do approach him, don't rant and rave. Keep as calm as possible and express your grievances, firmly and honestly. And finally, don't make idle threats. If you're going to issue ultimatums, make sure you adhere to them. A question from Laura. What actions would you recommend? Paul. Each case is unique and subjective, Laura. I'm very reluctant to give specific advice. But what really got to me was this. One morning, my mom came up to my bedroom. Instead of the normal ranting and raving, she remained very calm. After telling me how much she and my father loved me, she told me that they couldn't stand to see me slowly killing myself. She then asked me to leave, and meant it, adding that there was always a home there for me if I quit drinking. I'll never forget that day. It was a real wake-up call. In fact, that incident eventually put me on the road to sobriety. That's interesting. I rant and rave at my husband and it gets me nowhere, except a load of abuse that really hurts. I spend many nights in the spare bedroom crying myself to sleep, wondering if I'm really all the terrible things he calls me, wondering if I'm to blame for this demise. Let me assure you, Laura, you are not to blame. People with alcohol habits are prone to shadow projection. All the things they don't like about themselves, they project onto others. That is, they see all their own faults as being situated in others and blame them. Normally, the people who are closest to them get the worst. It is a way of externalizing the mess that resides within them. My advice is not to take the insults personally. Ultimately, you have one major decision to make. You need to decide whether the benefits of your relationship outweigh the deficits. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. How long do I let it go on? If he is going to change eventually, Laura, there is one thing you can do. Gather information in advance about local alcohol treatment options. If he asks for help, get him to call immediately and make an appointment. Offer to accompany him to the clinic on his first visit. A question from Mary to Paul. Hi, Paul. My name's Mary, and I'm the mother of an alcoholic. Can I stop you there, Mary? No, you're not the mother of an alcoholic. You're the mother of a person experiencing an alcoholic habit. Labeling someone as an alcoholic is disabling. The term alcoholic denotes something that's permanent, whereas a person experiencing an alcohol habit denotes a temporary state. The language we use can either exacerbate or help the situation. Sorry, please go on. That makes sense. Thank you, Paul. That sort of answers my question too, but I'd like to clarify it anyway. Is it true that even if my son refrains from drinking, he will always be an alcoholic? No, it's not, Mary. It's true that he will always abriac to drink if he's crossed the threshold. But he is not an alcoholic. He's a person. Once he relinquishes the habit, what he will be for the rest of his life is a human being with infinite potential. Whether he embraces that potential is his choice. A question from Ben to Paul and Steve. Living with an alcoholic wife is like living with a schizophrenic. She can be the most wonderful person in the world one minute, then turn at a moment's notice into the devil. Paul. I know, Ben. I was a perfect example. What you must remember is that your wife has probably crossed the abriactive threshold. Therefore, unconscious issues are breaking through into her consciousness and disturbing her equilibrium. Her mind is bombarded with issues that cause severe instability. Is there anything I can do to help? Remind her of the good things she's accomplished in life. Remind her of her innate goodness. She'll be despising herself. Okay. Should I continue to pour her drink anyway? Steve. Watering down or pouring away your wife's alcohol is futile, Ben. It usually exacerbates the problem. The drinker often becomes defiant and vows to get more alcohol, which means raising funds and inviting more financial hardship. Unfortunately, drinking often has to run its natural course. Yes, Ben. Your main priority must be yourself. It is imperative that you get a support network. People you can talk with openly and honestly. If you deny or suppress the problem, it will find other means of expression. Depression or neurosis, for instance. Ideally, a person who can be objective would be best placed to offer support. For example, a counselor. The problem with close friends or family is that they have a large investment in your welfare, and this can impede their effectiveness. They are highly likely to condemn and berate the drinker, a course of action which, although often warranted, doesn't provide a practical solution to the situation. You need to take care of yourself. You cannot change the drinker. With the help of a good counselor, you can put coping strategies into effect and look at your choices. A statement from Sharon to Steve. I feel so guilty. I've grown to hate my son after the problems he's caused us through drinking. Yet, I know deep down I really love him. The inner conflict is unbearable. That's understandable, and very common, Sharon. I hated my foster father for the abuse he inflicted on me, but I also loved him. The way I dealt with it was to separate the person from the actions. You love your son, but you cannot abide his actions. That makes sense. Thanks, Steve. William. My son is only 22, but he looks like an old man. He never eats, and he permanently reeks of alcohol. I'm always finding bottles hidden in his bedroom and other obscure areas of the house. I throw them away, but I'm wasting my time. He always gets more. William starts breaking down in tears. Steve. We must remember, William, alcohol is only a symptom. By removing the symptom, we don't address the root cause. The destructive cognitive patterns etched into the unconscious mind of your son are the problem. He needs a shift in consciousness to alleviate them. Our book, Alcoholic to Alchemist, is designed to produce such a shift. May I suggest you give him a copy? If he's ready and willing to practice the philosophy, it will produce the desired results. A question from Amanda to Paul. What can I do to help my daughter? She's way out of control. It's crucifying me to watch her killing herself. God knows how much she's drinking, but she stinks of it all the time. Frequently remind her how much you love her, Amanda. Remind her of her innate goodness. When people are in the throes of alcoholism, they already despise themselves. Shouting and bawling at them just reinforces their negative self-perception and heightens the need to escape. Most people experiencing an abusive alcohol habit need reminding of their innate goodness. Summary of main points. Know that your loved one or friend's destructive drinking has nothing to do with you. You didn't cause it, you can't control it, and you cannot cure it. People with an abusive alcohol habit often revert to shadow projection, a process whereby they imagine all their own shortcomings and character defects as being situated in someone else. In this case, you. This person then becomes a scapegoat. Armed with this knowledge, recognize that the aspersions they cast upon you actually define themselves. Develop a good support system of family and friends. Seek counseling and take care of yourself. The only life you exercise control over is your own. Don't exert vital energy trying to change someone else. It is a futile practice. Maintain your own identity. Family and friends of abusive drinkers often become so obsessed with the problem that their boundaries lapse and they forget where they end and the drinker begins. Don't enable the person's habit. Enabling takes various forms: covering up, making excuses, and lying on their behalf. You cannot prevent the inevitable. Attempting to do so often prolongs a person's drinking career. Focus on your own needs, not the needs of the drinker. Avoid major conflicts when the drinker is inebriated, but share your honest feelings when they are dry. Denying them rarely solves anything. If you issue ultimatums, be prepared to carry them out.